The wind blew cold across the broken towers of Zephyrian 9. The sky was gray. The clouds hung low like smoke from a long-dead fire. On the edge of an old sky bridge high above the ruined city, a girl stood alone. Her name was Velora. She was not human. Her skin had a faint violet glow under the stormy sky. Her long black hair moved with the wind, but she herself stood still. So still she looked like a statue. Her eyes were deep, empty, and tired. She wore thin clothing torn and faded, as if she had stopped caring long ago. Below her, the city stretched far and wide. Broken machines, old rusted ships, and towers half destroyed by war. The world had moved on, but Velora had not. No one noticed her. They never did. She was Nyari, an alien refugee species scattered and ignored since the end of the Great War. Once the Nyari were healers and thinkers. Now they were beggars in the corners of human cities. Unwanted. Unseen. Unheard. Velora stepped closer to the edge. She looked down. The drop was endless. She closed her eyes. Far below, a patrol moved through the rubble. Human soldiers. Most of them wore heavy armor, weapons strapped across their backs. But one moved slower, quieter. Corporal Jalen Riker. His armor was scuffed, not shiny like the others. His eyes looked tired but kind. He had seen too much war. He had lost too much. He was not supposed to look up. But he did. He saw her. Just a figure on a broken bridge. At first, he thought she was a statue. Then he saw her hair move. Then he saw her step forward. Jalen stopped walking. "Hey!" he shouted. The other soldiers didn't hear him. They kept moving, but the girl, she turned just a little. "Just enough." Jalen raised his hand slowly. "Don't." The girl didn't speak. She didn't move. Jalen looked around. No stairs, no way up fast. He activated his drone. It buzzed into the air and flew toward her. Velora watched the drone, calm, quiet, like she didn't care. Jalen's voice came through the drone speaker. Soft. "Careful. You don't have to do this." Still, she said nothing. "Please," he said again. "I don't know you." "But I've seen that look before." Velora blinked. Her hand dropped to her side. "Not forward. Not back." Jalen kept talking. "I had a sister. She looked like you once. Not the skin, not the hair, the eyes, the silence." The girl tilted her head slightly. "I failed her," he said. "I didn't speak when I should have. I stayed quiet, just like everyone else." Velora's lips moved. No sound came out. Jalen saw it. A whisper. Maybe a word. Maybe not. "I won't walk away this time," he said. She stepped forward. Just one foot. Jalen's heart pounded. "Wait," he shouted. The girl stopped. Her face was blank, her eyes full of storms. "I don't know your name," he said. She turned fully now, faced him, but still said nothing. "My name is Jalen," he said. "I'm just a medic. I don't have power. I don't have rank. But I will listen. If you let me." The drone hovered near her shoulder. Its soft light lit up her face. A tear rolled down Velora's cheek. She wiped it quickly, like it didn't matter. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down, right on the edge, feet dangling into nothing. Still no words. But she didn't jump, and she didn't leave. Jalen stood below, staring up. The other soldiers called out to him, told him to move. Patrol time was over. He ignored them. He stayed under the bridge until nightfall. The drone stayed too. Velora never looked down again. She just sat in silence. But something had changed, maybe not much, but enough. The next morning, the city woke up as usual. Engines roared. Machines sparked. People shouted. Everyone was too busy surviving to notice the girl on the bridge, except one man. Jalen Riker returned before the sun had fully risen. He carried nothing but a warm blanket, a piece of old bread, and a small flask of water. No weapon, no armor, no loud voice. He climbed the long path up to the old sky bridge, alone, and she was still there. Velora. Her violet skin looked pale in the morning light. Her hair was tangled. Her eyes had not closed all night. She turned her head as he approached, still silent, still unreadable. Jalen sat down 5 feet from her, never closer. No sudden moves, no sharp sounds. He placed the bread between them, carefully. "I brought this. It's not much, but it's real." Velora didn't reach for it. Jalen didn't mind. He leaned his back against the broken rail. He looked out at the sky. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said quietly. "Even ruined, this place still breathes." Valora looked down at her feet. "Did you sleep?" he asked. No reply. "Me neither." He smiled faintly. "I kept thinking about what you didn't say." She blinked slowly, then turned away. "You know," Jalen continued, "my sister, she was silent too. People thought she was broken, weak, but she wasn't. She was just waiting for someone who cared enough to stay." He paused, looked at her again. "I didn't stay, I left. She died the next week." For a moment, Valora's hand twitched. A small movement. A sign. Jalen caught it. He softened his voice even more. "I don't know your story," he said, "but I know what silence means. It's not just quiet. It's pain that's too big for words." Valora finally looked at him directly. Her eyes held centuries. Then, slowly, carefully, she pulled something from her waist. A piece of flat stone. She turned it over. The back had strange lines. Not drawings. Not letters cut by hand. She placed it in front of her, then traced a circle around it in the dust with her finger. Jalen leaned forward, curious. "What is that?" Valora touched the stone again gently, then tapped her chest, then tapped the stone, then drew a slash through the circle. A message. A ritual. Jalen didn't fully understand, but something clicked. "That's your truth," he said. "Something they took from you." Valora did not nod, but her eyes changed. He leaned back. "I won't ask you to speak. I won't ask for your voice. Not until you give it." A silence followed. Not heavy. Not dark. A peaceful silence. Valora reached for the bread. She broke a small piece, and for the first time, she ate. Days passed. Each morning, Jalen returned. Sometimes he spoke. Sometimes he just sat nearby. Valora never said a word, but she listened. And slowly, she began to respond in her own way. She wrote in the dust with her fingers. She drew images. She shared symbols. Jalen learned her name that way, Valora. He learned that she once lived in the mountains of Niaril Prime, a planet the humans had promised to protect. But they didn't. They abandoned it when the war grew worse. She watched her people fall. She tried to warn someone, anyone, but no one believed her. Or worse. They silenced her. Jalen started putting the pieces together. "I think someone important is hiding what happened to your people." Valora's fingers froze. She looked at him, straight in the eyes. For the first time, fear flickered across her face. "They threatened you, didn't they?" She didn't move. "They told you to stay silent, or they'd make sure no one else ever heard your truth." She slowly drew 3 lines in the dust, then wiped them away. 3 lives lost? 3 warnings? He didn't know, but he did know one thing. "I'll help you," he said. She pulled back. "I mean it. You don't have to say anything. Just show me. However you can. We'll find a way." Valora looked down at the stone in her hand again, then she turned it over. For the first time, she offered it to him. Jalen took it gently, and he understood. This wasn't just a message. This was evidence. Proof of something terrible. Something the world had buried. And now, she had chosen him to carry it. The silent girl had chosen a human. The only one who listened. Jalen turned the stone over in his hands, brushing off the dust with care. The surface was warm, unnaturally smooth. The lines etched into it shimmered faintly in the fading light, some kind of ancient data code not from any human system. It was old. Pre-war, maybe, but it pulsed with something more than just age. It pulsed with danger. Valora stood nearby, her eyes locked on the horizon. She said nothing, but her hand tightened around the torn cloth at her waist. She had given him her only secret. And now, the weight of that decision hung heavy between them. Jalen crouched and pulled a small scanning pad from his side pocket. The screen flickered as he held it near the stone. At first nothing, then error, then something else. A warning in deep red letters. Classified Coalition Order 73 Delta. Unauthorized access detected. He dropped the scanner. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. Valora turned toward him. Jalen looked up. This came from them? The Coalition?" She nodded once. Then with a finger she traced a mark in the dirt. A human symbol, then crossed it out. "You're telling me someone human ordered the attack on your people?" She knelt beside him, her finger drawing again. Slow, detailed shapes. A building. A triangle. An eye. He stared at it. The watch. That was a nickname for the Galactic Oversight Division, the secret intelligence wing of the Coalition. They were supposed to protect worlds, not destroy them. Velora, you witnessed something, didn't you? She looked him in the eyes. The answer was there. She had seen it happen. Not a mistake. Not a crossfire. A plan, a purge. Someone in power had decided the Nyari were no longer useful, no longer needed, and they erased them. The stone was a record. A captured code from that operation. Maybe stolen. Maybe smuggled out. Maybe meant to be hidden forever. Until now. Later that night, Jalen sat alone in his bunk at the outpost. He stared at the stone. He thought about reporting it, sending it up the chain. But he already knew what would happen. The file would vanish. The story would disappear. And Velora would be gone by morning. Instead, he sent a quiet message through an old contact, someone outside the system. Someone he trusted. He used simple words. I have something. Not a weapon. A truth. The reply was quick. A time, a place, a price. He shut off the screen and looked out at the stars. But silence does not go unnoticed forever. The next morning, soldiers were scanning the lower sectors. Checkpoints, questions. A strange ship hovered in the outer sky, marked with no flag. Jalen felt it in his gut. They knew. Someone had intercepted the signal. Someone was watching. He found Velora in her usual place on the bridge. She was sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, calm, still. But when he approached, she opened her eyes before he made a sound. She already knew. We have to go, he said quickly. They're coming. Velora stood without hesitation. This time, there was no fear in her movements, only purpose. Jalen led her through the lower city, cutting through abandoned transit tunnels and power shafts. They passed by rusted machines and broken screens that once broadcast lies. Now, everything was silent. When they reached the safe zone, a crumbling warehouse hidden beneath the city's bones, Jalen turned to her. We meet someone here, he said. They can help us. Spread your message. Get the truth out. Velora's hand touched her chest. Then she held up 2 fingers. 2 days, he guessed. She nodded. I can hold them off for 2 days, he said. But after that, we run. She stepped closer, slowly. Then, for the first time, she reached out and touched his hand. Not a grip, not a pull, just a connection. Then she let go. That night, the stars above Zephyrian 9 shifted. 2 figures sat beneath the ruins. One carried a stone that could destroy an empire. The other carried a silence that had waited too long to be broken. And high above them, in the dark corridors of unseen ships, red lights blinked awake. Orders were given, no names, no warnings, just one message. Erase them both. The warehouse walls shook with distant thunder, not from the sky but from ships. Low-flying coalition drones circled above Zephyrian 9, silent in the clouds, hunting with cold logic. But beneath the ground, in the hidden steel belly of an abandoned broadcast station, 2 figures sat in shadows. Velora, once silent and broken, now stood in front of a cracked monitor screen. Her back was straight. Her eyes were fire. The stone she had carried so long, the one that held the truth of what happened to her people, now glowed softly in her hand. Beside her, Jalen Riker checked the power feeds, rewired the antennas, and kept one hand close to his sidearm. He had seen war. He had seen betrayal. But never had he seen a fire like the one now burning in Velora's silence. You sure about this? He asked quietly. She looked at him. No words, just a nod. He gave a slow breath. Once this goes out, there's no going back. They'll erase every trace of us. You know that. Velora placed the stone on the console. Then, slowly, she raised her fingers to her throat. And for the first time in years, she spoke a low, raspy whisper. Then let them try. Jalen stared, stunned. Her voice was raw, wounded, but powerful, like an ancient fire relit in the ruins of time. He moved fast, linked the stone to the transmitter. The console cracked and sparked. It was old, barely working, but the signal blinked green. Velora stepped closer to the microphone. He didn't stop her. She began to speak, in her language first. Then slowly, painfully in human tongue, "I am Valora of Nyril Prime." I saw what they did. Each word was like thunder. She trembled, but did not fall. They came not to save us, but to burn us. Not by mistake, by order. She reached into her pouch and pulled out a tattered ribbon once worn by a child. My brother was 8.
He held this when they came.
I tried to scream. They silenced me. Her hands gripped the mic, but now I scream again, for all who cannot. Jalen sent the signal. It climbed like fire through the airwaves, across blocked satellites, through crumbling relay stations, into corners of the galaxy where truth had been forgotten. Screens lit up in black market dens. Ship radios crackled in deep space. On distant colonies, broken families paused as a voice unknown but deeply human reached them, a voice that burned. But fire brings enemies. The door to the station burst open. 3 figures in black armor stormed inside. Coalition hunters. No symbols, no names. Just one mission: erase. Jalen moved fast. He grabbed Valora, threw her behind a steel crate, and opened fire. The echo tore through the chamber. He hit one in the chest. The second dropped from an overhead pipe, but the third clipped Jalen in the leg. He fell with a cry. Valora did not run. She stood exposed, defiant. The hunter raised his rifle and then stopped. Her eyes met his, and she screamed, not in pain and fury, in memory. The sound shook the walls. The hunter flinched. That hesitation gave Jalen just enough time to shoot. Science returned, except for Valora's breathing, heavy, raw. Alive, Jalen lay bleeding. "You okay?" She crawled to him, pressed her hands to the wound. Her fingers glowed slightly, an old Niari trick for slowing blood loss. "You spoke," he whispered. She nodded. "Because you listened. The signal still broadcasted, but it would not last long. More ships would come. They both knew it. We have to move," Jalen said, pushing himself up. Valora helped him to his feet. For the first time, she looked taller, stronger. Not a shadow. Not a ghost. But a voice. Above the planet, the Coalition's command ship received the signal trace. On its bridge, a masked officer watched the footage. Valora's face. Her words. Her fire. He spoke only 2 words. "Find her." But somewhere deep in that same ship, a young technician looked at the same screen and hesitated. He had a sister once. She had gone silent too. Now he listened, and the fire began to spread. The storm above Zephyrian 9 had not passed. Dark ships circled like vultures, invisible in the clouds but known by their hum. The world below seemed unchanged, dust, rust, and silence. But something had shifted. A fire had been lit. A voice had broken free. Valora's voice. And across the stars, that voice now echoed. The old station's signal bounced from relay to relay, skipping across locked channels, smuggled by sympathetic technicians, whispered through broken satellites. A girl who once stood ready to fall had stood up instead, and dared to speak. She had named the guilty. She had spoken the truth, and the galaxy had heard. In the refugee zones of forgotten moons, Hyari survivors gathered around old radios. For the first time in years, they heard one of their own speak, not in whispers, but in thunder. They cried, not in grief, but in something deeper. Hope. Back on Zephyrian 9, Jalen Riker limped across the cracked pavement. His arms slung in a field wrap, blood dried on his sleeve. Valora walked beside him, her steps light but her gaze sharp. She no longer walked behind him. She walked beside him. Word had already spread. The station had been burned. The soldiers had vanished. But the message had already escaped, and the people had begun to talk. A merchant near the bazaar nodded at Valora as she passed. A child raised a hand shyly before hiding behind a curtain. No one had done that before. Not for her kind. Jalen stopped near a quiet alley. There, a small craft waited, an old transport half working, but enough to get them off-world. A message pinged on his pad. He opened it. It was from his contact. A simple sentence: "You lit the fire. They're listening. They're afraid." He looked at Valora. She had no expression. Then she smiled, small, rare, but real. They took off under cover of night. No lights, no trails, Only stars, only silence. Days passed, then weeks. The coalition did what it always did: deny, erase, redirect. But the message could not be buried again. Too many had heard it. Too many now remembered. The name Valora appeared in hidden broadcasts, in refugee poetry, in coded messages among rebel networks. She had become a symbol, not of war, but of truth, of a voice that broke through centuries of silence. In a hidden system far from Zephyrian 9, a council of worlds gathered. Jalen sat at the edge of the chamber. Silent, Valora stood before the table. This time, she was not alone. Yari elders stood behind her, human diplomats, android observers, alien translators. She stepped to the center. 1,000 eyes watched. She lifted the same stone she had once held close like a wound. Now she held it like a weapon. "I am not a soldier," she said, her voice steady. "I am not a spy. I am not a hero. I am a witness." She paused. Then she looked straight at the human envoy across from her. "And I am no longer silent." Gasps filled the chamber. Pre-B. Stone was activated. The council heard the original recordings, orders, names, coordinates, and proof unshakable, unforgivable. The chamber erupted, not in rage, but in action. Across the stars, the system cracked. The official who signed the order to destroy Nyril Prime was arrested. Coalition. Policies were rewritten. The Nyari were recognized as sovereign once more, and a statue was raised, not of a warrior, not of a leader, but of a girl standing on a broken bridge with her hand open and her eyes forward. Jalen and Valora stood beneath it 1 year later. He turned to her. "Do you regret it?" She looked at him. "No," he smiled. "Still not much of a talker." Valora's smile returned. "I spoke when it mattered," and they stood together in silence. Not the kind that wounds, but the kind that heals.